Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for being with me for today's devotion. We are in 1 Corinthians 1. And let me just say, as you're opening your Bible, that this coming Sunday morning at First Baptist, we will have the Lord's Supper. So we'll be observing the Lord's Supper in all three of our worship services, and look forward to celebrating Jesus that way. I also hope you had a good time worshiping the Lord this past Sunday. And if for any reason you were not in church this past Sunday, please go to our website at fbcrockhill.org and watch one of the live streams from yesterday. All right, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, as I mentioned previously, the letter of 1 Corinthians is one that the Apostle Paul wrote during his third missionary journey, during the 2+ years that he was in Ephesus. And you'll remember the city of Corinth, located near Athens, Greece, is where Paul spent more than 18 months during his second missionary journey. Now, a little while later, he's writing a letter back to those believers to encourage them and to address an issue. And the issue is they are a divided church. And we'll get more into that as we go through the book of Corinthians. They were arguing about they had kind of divided into groups, tribes within the church, based largely, not exclusively, but largely on which preacher they preferred and so on. A very fleshly human thing. But that's not where I want to focus today. My devotional thought for today comes from verse 18 and a couple of other verses that go with it. First, verse 18, he says, "For the word of the cross," the word, the message of the cross, "is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God." Now, the word of the cross is it's the message of the crucifixion of Jesus. It is what we often refer to as the gospel, the good news of Jesus and his death on the cross, paying the penalty for our sin. Very similar to this, in Romans chapter 1, verse 16, the Apostle Paul wrote, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel. I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and to the Greek or the Gentile also." So those two verses are saying the same thing. In Romans, Paul says, "I'm not ashamed of the gospel. It's the power of God that leads to salvation for everyone, whether Jew or Gentile." Here in 1 Corinthians 1:18, he's saying the word of the cross, that's the gospel, the message of the crucified Jesus. He said, to some people it is foolishness, but to others it is the power of God, like he mentioned in Romans 1, those who are being saved. To those who are perishing, it is foolishness. In other words, they hear the cross, the message of the cross, Jesus' atoning death, his sacrifice, paying for their sin. And some people say that is a foolish message. And because they think it's a foolish message, they reject it. They don't believe it. The result is they perish. But those who hear it and believe it, accept it, respond to it, it then becomes the very power of God that saves them. So 1 Corinthians 1:18 and Romans 1:16 are saying essentially the same thing. Now, drop down to verse 21 in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. He says, "For since the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom," now notice this, "for since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom, the worldly wisdom, did not come to know God. God was well pleased through the foolishness of the message preached to save those who believe." So what he's saying here is that the so-called wisdom of humanity, the wisdom of our philosophers, the wisdom of people, the wisdom of the average man, the wisdom of people, he says, no one comes to know God through human wisdom. The wisdom that leads people to know God is the wisdom of God that a lot of people in the world think is actually foolishness. It's the cross. So the world thinks that's foolish and they're smarter, but in their smarts, in their wisdom, they don't know God. Those who don't see the wisdom of God, the message of the cross is foolishness. They see it as the wisdom of God and they believe. Those are the one who are saved. Not a single human being will ever come to know God through their own human wisdom. So don't be ashamed of the message. Like the Apostle Paul said in Romans 1, "I am not ashamed of the gospel." Don't be ashamed of it. Don't change it, because that is the only message. Hear me, church. That is the only message that has the power of God to save anyone. A watered down message saves not one single person. So keep preaching the same message, the crucified and resurrected Jesus. That's the message for today. I'll see you tomorrow as we look at chapter 2. God bless you, everybody. See you then.